And welcome back. So in the last video you saw that we got the intake removed, the fan shroud removed. We're going to continue work with disassembly, and we're going to go ahead and get the radiator out of here. You can see we went ahead and removed the upper and lower radiator hoses. It just has the spring clamps just like it did on the 6.4. Other things to note is it's just like on the 6.4, it's got a the condenser for the air conditioner, which also looks like it serves as the transmission cooler. Because I see air conditioning lines running into the middle and bottom fitting, and this top fitting here comes off these set of lines here, which run towards the back of the transmission. So interesting enough, I think the transmission cooler, at least on this model, I could be wrong about this, I think the transmission cooler is the upper part of this kind of condenser here, and the bottom part of it is for the air conditioner. Because it does have another cooler that you see up front, which is down there, but that is just like on our RAM, just like on our other RAM on the 6.4, that is for the power steering pump. I should say power steering system. But it looks like just like on the 2500 with the 6.4, to get this radiator out of here, you got one bolt on each side. You also have a couple of lines which are attached. You got one bracket down here, which, as you can see, I got my finger on. Looks like these lines are the lines that go back towards the transmission, which are held on the side of there. And on the front of this radiator, you see you got a fastener here where I'm pointing, and you got another fastener down here. It might be a bit harder to see. You can see, hopefully you can see down there where my finger is at, right here, that hold this other condenser slash radiator in place. So what we got to do is go ahead and get this unbolted. Get this side bracket unbolted, and I should be able to swing this out far enough to get these side pieces unlocked. Because just like on our other video, you see that the other end of this just slides into this part of the end of the radiator. And if you remember last time we did this, if you watched my previous videos on the other truck, we were able to kind of just swing the radiator out this way towards the front, and then basically just slide it out of this end here, and that should free things up. Now, as we were taking these hoses off, these hoses came off easy, and by easy I mean really easy. I didn't have to fight with them. I didn't have to get a set of hose picks behind them and break the seals loose that you would typically have if you had something that's been on there for a number of years. Now, these hoses don't look like they've ever been replaced. They still look like the factory ones, but one thing I did notice when I was taking this off, which kind of goes back to, you know, feeling like there's a little bit of oil in the coolant, is that these hoses are kind of behaving like they're oil soaked. In other words, on a radiator hose, if you've ever seen one that's had like an oil drip on it or constant oil exposure, they tend to swell up from exposure to oil over a long period of time. And that's kind of what the upper and the lower radiator hose feel like on this thing. Because again, once I move that clamp out of the way, I could just grab them by hand, twist them, and literally pull them right off. And typically, you know, you can't do that. Normally they form like a tension type bond or a surface bond from being clamped in place for, you know, a long period of time, and that didn't happen with these. So at a minimum, what we're going to have to do is that we'll be replacing the upper and lower radiator hoses. We'll get new hoses that go back towards the heater core. We're going to leave these in place until we have a chance to flush the heater core, and then when that's done, we'll take it off, because it'll be easier to, even though I know these have got some old contaminants in them, we can still use them since they're attached to the heater core to do a flush through these, and then we'll replace them at that point. Let's see. So that's what we're going to work on next. We're going to work on getting this radiator out of here, and then we'll see about getting power steering pump out, and again just continue to kind of tear down this front end. Water pump will come off next, and what we're going to do on the water pump is I've got a cardboard lid, and we're going to treat it just like we did on the 6.4. As we take a bolt out of the water pump, we're going to stick it in the corresponding spot on a piece of cardboard, and I'll show you this. That way we know each position the bolts go back into, because I've got a funny feeling, just like on our other Hemi, you're going to find out that a lot of these bolts are different lengths as you kind of go around this pump. So we want to make sure that we get the right bolts back in the right spots. But that being said, I'm going to go grab some tools. I'm going to work on getting these fittings off the side of this radiator. Again, we're looking at one clamp down here, and we're looking at 2 brackets on the front. We've got one bolt here on the side radiator, and we've got the other bolt on the other grommet over here. And when we get that out of there, I'll bring you back. Thank you much. And welcome back. So I wanted to show off a couple of things. There's another fastener. You've got the one fastener which we commented on, which is over here going this way, and this bracket down here at the bottom. You can see the transmission lines here. They feed into a bracket that screws in from where my thumb is forward, so that needs to be undone. You have another screw right here. Right, you kind of see my finger there pointing down right here. This is your air conditioning lines that screw into the little bracket that goes from the front of the radiator in that location. You've got these 2 screws which we covered earlier, which are right on this condenser. One here and one right there. I did take the front grill off. Just like any other Dodge, the front grill has got fastener here, one here, and one here, and inside of here are the clips, which in this case you can see that have been broken because this grill has been removed before. It's got 2 plastic clips on the bottom. You can kind of reach in with a flat blade screwdriver, which I like to do. Some people say you can just grab the grill and pull it forward and it'll release this clip, but if the clip's old, you run the risk of breaking this clip when you do that. So with the top of the grill unbolted, you can lean it forward, get behind it with a screwdriver, and kind of pry up on that clip a little bit until it releases, and then pull it forward, and you run the much less of a risk of breaking it. But you can see with the grill out, you can get to this fastener a lot easier. And then take it a step further, since we have to clean it, there's a bolt here for your overflow tank and a bolt there. And with those 2 undone, we're just going to take our overflow tube. We should be able to grab this overflow tank out of here. Yep, there we go. Just comes out, and I've heard this referred to as a big old kidney before, because it does kind of look like a kidney. I'm going to go ahead and get this. We're going to go ahead and drain this into our drain pan here. What you can see, this drain pan here, this is actually a big, large concrete mixing tub. You can get these at pretty much any supply store like Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, whatever you got in your area. But if you go in the concrete section where you can get the ready mix concrete and the tools for working with concrete, such as trowels and levels and such, you can get these large concrete mixing tubs, and they work really, really great for stuff like this, like draining oil, draining coolant, because you get a nice big splash tub. You're less likely to misalign your catch pan with whatever you're draining. There we go. And be careful when you're working with coolant, especially like we are outdoors. I'll wash all this down to get rid of any spillage. You want to be mindful if you've got any animals in the area. You want to make sure that they don't find this stuff and tend to drink it, because it is poisonous. And you can see with that overflow tank out of here, you got a lot more room to work with, especially to be able to get to this bottom bolt. So that being said, I think we got all our fasteners up at this point. We did lift our radiator up slightly so we can kind of swing it forward. And you can see there that I should be able to now kind of just work with this radiator, swing it forward, get it out from these bottom clips. Now, one of the other differences that you'll see with the 1500 versus the 2500, on the 2500 you'll actually have a third cooling apparatus here, because you'll have your, on 2500 you'll have a radiator, you'll have a condenser for the AC, you'll have an oil cooler, a separate oil cooler, and then you'll have the one down there. I shouldn't say separate oil cooler, apologies. You'll have a radiator, you'll have a condenser, you'll have the transmission cooler, and you've got the power steering cooler in a 2500. So in this one, it looks like all we have is radiator again. It looks like this is multi-purpose. It looks like this is serving to cool the transmission and as an air conditioning condenser. And then we've got our power steering cooler there. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm only going by that based on where these lines are going. So like I said, these two top lines here, this top fitting here goes to a set of these flux hoses and then continues on to the back of the transmission. So that's why I'm saying I believe that this is dual purpose. Okay, so we've got all that done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on getting this swung out, and then I'll bring you back. Thank you much. And welcome back. So as you can see, we've got our water pump off. We went ahead and took our power steering pulley off as well. It's just 3 bolts. Just rotate your power steering pump pulley. Normally it's up here like this. You just rotate your power steering pump pulley until one of these holes in the pulley line up with the bolt head, and just take the bolts out. Now the nice thing about these power steering pump units, is it'll come off the entire unit. It's attached with rubber hoses, or I should say metal fittings, but the hoses between the fittings are rubber. Gives you a nice bit of length. Just take it like this, just shove it over here. Fuse box, nice and out of the way, so I'm proud of this going forward. Obviously we've got a water pump out, and that's the nice thing about those big trays that you see down there, the mixing trays we were looking at earlier. Is you can see that mixing tray almost goes completely from one side to the other. So you can have them underneath here and just pull the water pump out, just kind of like the fluid fall where it may, and then we'll land inside the pan. This is the pump itself, water pump itself I should say, and yes, we will be replacing this and we'll be getting a new water pump. No sense tearing it down this far and reassembling it, just put the old pump on it. And I don't know if you can hear that. Hear that little bit of a rattle as I kind of quickly move this back and forth. There's a little bit of slop in that impeller on the other end. But this is the original pump. Now, it made it 198,000 miles, so more power to it. It is a Chrysler pump. It's got the emblems and part numbers on it, so it very well may be original. So this is why we were making marks in our box earlier. We kind of picked the starting point and just kind of a crude drawing here. The thermostat housing, which is here. And then we started with this being bolt number 1. And we worked our way around. And we just kind of made a mark as to where each bolt is at. It's just like on the 6.4, you'll notice some of these bolts, like this one here, is considerably longer than maybe this bolt down here. So it's just important that you get the right bolts back in the right spots. Obviously, you don't need a diagram to do this. You could just kind of play hunt and peck. The shorter ones obviously won't thread into where the longer ones at, and the really, really long ones, won't thread all the way in to where the shorter ones go, but you could get in a situation where something is just, long enough to catch maybe a couple threads, but not long enough to completely thread, and that might get you into a bind later. But there you go. Again, a quick spread spare piece of cardboard and a quick Sharpie saves you a lot of headache later when you go to reinstall it. We also took our idler pulley off, which goes on the front of the water pump. You just kind of see it sitting there. I left its bolt with it. This is the water neck for the upper radiator hose the thermostat sits on. Again, we're just going to leave its bolts with it. I'll more than likely get a new metal neck as well. We'll since put the new water pump on it, new thermostat on, and new upper and lower radiator hoses and such. If you're not going to go ahead and just make it all new as we can. That way we don't have to worry about it. So when we bring you back for the next video, I'm losing my daylight here. I need to get this antifreeze and stuff cleaned up here, at least get it sprayed off of the lower cross member. The what we'll do is we'll get this lower crank pulley off, and I'll show you how I handle that. It'll be just the same way we did the 6.4. I should be able to get that off with the same 3-jawed puller. It looks like I've got a 3-jawed puller that we reversed the claws on, so the bottom part of the claw faces out rather than in, and I'll show you this when we get to it, but it should allow us to get that pulley off. Once that pulley is off, we'll drop the timing cover, and it looks like, just like in our 6.4, it looks like our air conditioning compressor can just go ahead and stay mounted to the block, because again, I don't have the equipment to evacuate a set of the AC system, let alone recharge it. So we'll just take these bolts loose here on the side, and we'll just leave the main nut that's on that air conditioning compressor intact. So it should allow it just to stay here, and as long as we can back these bolts out, it should then allow us, just like on our 6.4, to remove the timing cover but leave that in place. Yeah, all right, perfect. And in case you're wondering, those big tubs also allow you to do things like this. You can have your magnetic light, shop light, sitting up here at the top, and as you unbolt your power steering pump, you can lean forward, hit your shop light, break the magnetic base loose, and guess where it lands? Completely submerged in antifreeze. And you can probably see some of the antifreeze dripping out of, what used to be the charge port. I guess we're going to find out how waterproof this thing is. Actually, not very, because you can see a split right there. So chances are this thing's waterlogged full of antifreeze right now. Lovely. Well, we're going to see how it holds up in the long term. I'm going to rinse it off with some water. We're going to let it dry. It's either going to live or have to be replaced. No biggie. I've got 3 more of these. But with that being said, that's enough rambling for now. I'm going to go ahead and get cleaned up. I'm going to call it a video at this point. And when I bring you back, we'll get that, like I said, we'll get that lower crank pulley off, and then we'll get that timing cover pulled out of there. But other than that, I'll talk to you later. Thank you much. Bye.